DrBoyceTV.com, the home for intelligent black people. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and today I'm going to talk about this interesting hip hop thing going on. I don't know if you call it a beef. I think we need to be vegetarians right now. But there's a little bit of a conversation happening between the rapper Dee-1 and the rappers Rick Ross and Meek Mill. I'm going to give you a Dr. Boyce breakdown of what's going on and why the whole community, everybody that cares about black people, needs to pay attention to this conversation. So get comfortable, buckle up your seatbelt, hit that thumbs up button. We're going to get started on DrBoyceTV.com right now.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm, great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones too late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to co-sign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV. Here we are.
What's going on, everybody? What's going on? I hope you guys can hear me. Give me a yes in the chat if you can hear me okay. Let me know if you can hear me okay. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I want to say welcome to DrBoyceTV.com, the home for intelligent black people. And I want to kind of talk to you guys about something that I observed. You guys know I'm a big fan of hip hop music, and I have consistently let you guys know that hip hop culture has been a huge indicator of the direction of the black community. You guys know this. Give me a yes if you agree. Can we agree right now on something really quick? Give me a yes if you can agree on this. Can we agree? Can we agree Ruth and Dane and Jay Lilly and Paul Godson and everybody else is Paul Gooden. Can we agree that hip hop culture has some influence on the black community? Give me a yes if we can at least agree that hip hop culture is influential on black people. Can we agree on that, or do I have to argue about the basics? Can we agree on the high level discussion, or do I got to start on the basement and explain why 1 + 1 is always going to be 2? Can we agree? Give me a yes if you're going to. Okay. So if you want to know why this conversation is a very important conversation, let's start right there. Hip hop music is one of the greatest influences on the mindset of black people. It goes all the way back to when my friend Russell Simmons explained to the Adidas executives that Adidas was going to be worn more by millions of people because Run DMC had a song called My Adidas. Anybody remember that? So they didn't believe him. They were like, well, what's this hippity hop music? This can't make people buy products. What are you talking about? Well, Russell's a smart guy. So what Russell did was he said, okay, why don't you come to a concert? My brother Run is performing, and they're going to perform their song about Adidas sneakers. And so what he told his brother to do, pay attention, this is about marketing, influence, business, and money. It all comes back to money. So he told, so this is a true story. So Russell told his brother, he said, in the middle of the concert, I want you to get everybody in the audience to hold one Adidas in the air. This is not an Adidas. This is something else. It's a Skechers or something. I don't forget what this brand's called. Skechers. Yeah, I like Skechers. They're nice. And he said, I want you to tell everybody to hold up one shoe in the air. And then we're going to show this Adidas guy how many people are wearing Adidas because of the song. And when this guy saw 50,000, 60,000 people holding their Adidas in the air, he signed them to a deal right on the spot. Okay, so going all the way back 40 years now, 40-something years, hip-hop has been a huge influencer on black culture. It's been a huge influencer on black thinking. It's been a huge influencer on outcomes in the community. Rappers have had a stronger influence on the thinking of black people than the scholars, than the doctors, than the lawyers, than the teachers, than damn near anybody else. Is that a good thing? Well, it depends on who's rapping, right? It depends on who's rapping. Now, that gets us back to Dee-1 and Meek Mill and Rick Ross. Why am I talking about this? Okay. And I talk about issues like this actually in my new book. It's called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. If you want to get a copy at drboycebooks.com. So Dee-1, is a former teacher. I know D. I've known him for a long time. D1 was at our last All Black National Convention. He's been there 2 or 3 times now. We gave him Entertainer of the Year last year because we have always loved what he's been doing. He has this great song called Jay Weezy and 50 back in 2011 that he did that got millions of views. That basically where he was challenging Jay-Z, Lil Wayne, and 50 Cent to be more thoughtful in their music. And why does D1 think this way? Well, D1 had a friend that was murdered, and he thought about the spiritual and psychological influence of violent music and how this may play some role in the way our people behave in the hood. He also was a school teacher, and he would go to school and he would see how the kids at school were influenced by the lyrics of their favorite artists. And in fact, I have a nephew. By the way, I don't get to talk about him much, but his name is Dre Priest. He's a great artist out of Louisville, Kentucky. His music is not, it's not the kind of music I might make myself, but he's family. You gotta love family. But I had a conversation with him when he found out that his kids were listening to his music and they loved it. But then he said, I'm kind of wondering if this is the right thing for kids to be reciting. And I said, yeah, you should think about that. Why don't you think about that? Why don't we get back together next week and have a talk about that? Right. So here's the thing. Here's the point that I'm getting at here. And this is why the conversation with D1 and Rick Ross is so important. D1 has been challenging artists in the hip hop music industry to just be thoughtful and more responsible with the language that they use, the words that they use. Be thoughtful about the message you share and how that message impacts your own people. Look around you and you will see nothing but tremendous amounts of violence. Look around you, you will see tremendous amounts of broken families. Look around you, you will see millions of traumatized children. Look around you. You will see significant amounts of financial irresponsibility. Give me a yes if you're noticing these things. Let me know if I'm not. Let me make sure I'm not the only one who's seeing this. If you look around, you'll see lots of sexual irresponsibility, and some people think that the music could play a part in this. Now, you can debate this all day long, but there are people who feel that way. My wife is an expert on the subconscious mind. She's a therapist and a psychologist, and she says that it's shocking to her that there are people who don't understand how repeating a message to a beat over and over and over again with various forms of symbolism, persuasive symbolism in the music, isn't going how it's shocking to her that she thinks that she's it's shocking to her to hear that there are people who think that that has no influence on people's behavior. Now, I'm not here to talk down on people who disagree. I'm not here to do that to you. But what I am here to say is if you do research, if you read anything in psychology about how the masses are influenced, you will find that the key drivers of brainwashing of the subconscious mind are there are 3 things my wife mentioned because she read this book, a big thick book on the subconscious mind a couple times. She reads a lot of books. She said symbolism, repetition, and trauma. Symbolism, repetition, and trauma. So if you watch a hip hop music video, give me a yes or no if you've ever seen various forms of symbolism, symbols to show that I'm about it. I'm from the hood. I'm keeping it real. Let me know if you've seen this. Has anybody ever seen images of guns? What about Rick Ross? If you're listening, this is for you too. Images, because Rick Ross understands this. He understands that's how he became Rick Ross. He didn't really become Rick Ross, right? Because y'all do understand that Rick Ross isn't the actual Rick Ross. Y'all do know that, right? That he understands that he's playing a character. I'm not disrespecting him. This is not a 50 Cent kind of thing, but this is the truth, right? Rick Ross, his name is not really Rick Ross. He got his name from the real Freeway Ricky Ross, who happens to be another friend of mine. The real Freeway Ricky Ross. Does anybody know what Freeway Ricky Ross is known for? Freeway Ricky Ross was known to be the biggest drug kingpin on the West Coast. Freeway Ricky Ross explained to me that he took Rick Ross to court. He said, how dare you take my name and my whole persona and pretend to be me when even I'm not even trying to be me no more. I'm trying to be a different man. I'm not glorifying the things that I did because I realized what it was doing to my community. But now you're taking the things that I did and you're glorifying these things and you're acting like it's all cool. Well, maybe the reason he acts like it's so cool is because he never really did those things. I think he was a corrections officer. I think 50 Cent referred to him as Officer Rick or something like that. But I don't have have nothing against officers. My father was a cop, so nothing against Officer Rick. But I never understood how this idea that a man could take another guy's name and just take it as his own, and that's just it, right? And going back to the subconscious mind, and this is where D1 is stepping in and talking to Rick Ross. And D1, he's been my friend for many, many years. We've had many, many conversations. He understands the Boyce Watkins perspective on a lot of things, but he's his own man. He has his own mind, right? So D1 has been kind of, and I didn't know D was going to do this. I just, when we talked, I said, wow, okay, dude, you're really speaking on some things. He has been challenging artists, and he specifically mentioned Rick Ross and Meek Mill, and he basically is kind of saying, what are we doing? Right? He's basically saying, if you look at the music and you look at how the music influences our people, why would you share messages that are harmful to the black community in that particular way? Now, that's a tough spot to take, though. That's a tough spot to take because you can open yourself up to criticism. If you give it out, you got to be ready to take it. And I did say that to him. However, I thought he had a great point. And I thought and I think it's an important conversation. And so said what he said, and D is brilliant, and he shared all the talent that I knew that he's always had. I've always known how talented he was. I think the world is really finding that out now. And then Rick Ross responded, right? So Rick Ross responded. I put his response on my Instagram. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance. You can go take a look at that. And the response was interesting to me because when I saw Meek's response and Rick's response, their responses were indicative of another epidemic we have in the black community. And this is what I refer to as the bearded baby phenomenon. Now, the bearded baby phenomenon is where you have grown ass men with beards who are still thinking like children. This is not a diss track. I'm not out putting out no diss music on nobody, but I'm just telling you like it is, like I always do. Meek Mill and Rick Ross are grown men. I think both of them are old. I think Rick, I'm guessing they're, I don't know. Let me see. Let me Google it real quick. Hit the thumbs up button while I Google this. Let's see. How old is Rick Ross? Rick Ross is 47 years old. And I'm gonna guess Meek Mill. I'm gonna peg him at about 42. But maybe no, he's younger, 36. Okay, so Meek he has a little bit more of an excuse. He's a younger guy. He's closer to D's age. Rick is closer to my age. And the bearded baby phenomenon is where you have black men who have reached maturity and puberty, but they should be old enough to understand that they can no longer go through life as if they are simply products of their environment. They can't go through life and say, look, I was raised in the hood. This is how I see the world. This is just how the hood made me, right? They can't go through the world and say, well, it's not my fault. I'm a victim of circumstances. And that's why I rap about the trap because, I came out the trap. You can't do that anymore because part of manhood and masculinity means that you should no longer be a product of your environment. When you become a man, your environment is supposed to be a product of you. Give me a yes if you understand what I'm saying. Like if I live in this house, what happens in this house, I can't say, well, I'm a product of what happens in my own house. What happens in my house is a product of me. It's a reflection of my thinking. When my kids are walking around, they're wearing black wealth t-shirts. It's because it's a product of my thinking. I saw one of my girls wearing an Ice Cube shirt, and it's because when Ice Cube and I were talking, I introduced her to Ice Cube, right? And so lots of things that happen in your space should be a product of you. You can't say I'm a product of my environment. You can't say I'm a victim of my circumstances because the minute you become, this is a note for all the young men in here, especially, and the women too. Once you get to the point where you're conscious enough of who you are and your situation to be able to identify the variables that turn you into the person you are, that is when you're admitting and acknowledging that you have the ability to change what needs to be changed. Give me a yes if you follow, right? When you finally get to the point where you say, well, the reason I drank so much is because my mama abandoned me and my daddy was mean to me and I was born in the hood and I didn't have no money. The minute you can identify all the variables, all the extraneous variables that led you to become the man that you are, well, that's when you are also stating that you have the ability to shift the kind of man you are. At that point, you're letting the world know that it's a choice. It's almost like when my mother said, the minute I knew you needed to be potty trained was when you came to me with your diaper in your hand and said, here, change me. I laid the diaper down, laid down the bed and said, okay, mama, change me. That's when she realized that I needed to learn how to take myself to the bathroom, right? So for black men, the bearded baby phenomenon that we have to address in the community is that hip hop culture, unfortunately, because it's been bastardized, it's been bought out by other people. There are people in other communities who put billions of dollars into the mind control of black people. They keep these men as children. And so you have 47, 40, 48, 50-year-old men who still walk around like little boys, who still walk around thinking like children. So this was shown. The clear example I'm gonna point out to you is if you go and you look at Rick Ross and Meek Mill's response to Dee-1's critique, right? Now, whether or not you agree that Dee-1 should use their names and call them out, that's up to you. That's a personal choice. But look at the response. The response was not one, in my view, that was indicative of men who fully understood the gravity of their responsibility, right? It wasn't indicative of guys who were reflective and grown. It wasn't a grown man response. It was the response that you might get from like a distracted ninth grader. Like I think Meek Mill said, my new album coming out, LOL. It was something silly. Like, I don't remember what it was. I got to go find it. But it was something. So it was about that basic. It was just real like LOL. Like my daughter can do responses like that. Like she's 13. In fact, she's as a 13-year-old, actually, her response would have been a little more thorough, right? And I think Rick Ross, his first response was something silly. And then he came back and he did a whole video about you don't question Rose. I've been giving away turkeys for 20 years, and he starts talking about giving away turkeys. And I remember I was thinking, what does giving away turkeys have to do with the underlying conversation? Right? Where in the world? Why are we gobbling? Why are we gobbling now? Like it ain't even Thanksgiving yet. And why are we talking about giving away turkeys when he's actually talking about the things you do in your life that are far more impactful than you giving away a few turkeys every Thanksgiving? Because I need you to understand, Rick Ross, if you notice, his brand is I'm a boss. I'm the boss. I'm the boss, right? And the boss imagery, remember, a big part of hypnotizing you and tuning into your subconscious mind and brainwashing is symbolism. So if you watch any Rick Ross video, most of them include him maybe on a beach and maybe going down the river in Miami on a speedboat with his shirt open, with some chains on, with a big booty lady over here and a gun over there and some cocaine in the back with some money, right? So that's the whole persona. I'm a boss, right? Boss, drug dealer, boss, because I'm Rick Ross. I take the name of a drug dealer. That's the imagery that helps me sell records, right? If he didn't have all that imagery, then his records probably would not sell. So the thing to me is that if you look at this and you go deeper and you look at what is the mindset of the predators in our communities, aka drug dealers. Well, the drug dealer mindset, unfortunately, that tends to work on the black community is I can sell you crack and heroin all year long. I can kill your auntie, get your brother shot, get your daddy locked up, and get your mama killed. But then it's all okay as long as I give away a few turkeys at Christmas time. This goes all the way back to Nino Brown in New Jack City. If you remember, Nino Brown in New Jack City terrorized the whole community, destroyed families, got people killed, got families ruined through drugs, because there's nothing that's destroyed the black community more than drugs. I hope we understand. Like in the last 50, 60 years, the two things that probably hurt the black community the most were drugs and integration. Right, the Democratic Party and the drug and the whole war on drugs. Right, so not only did you get killed by the drugs, but you got killed by the response to the drugs. So you got killed by both the poison and the medication. Like both of those things were killing your community, killing your families. Millions of black men and women went to prison during the so-called war on drugs, where they were claiming to clean up a problem that they created. Because as Freeway Ricky Ross has so eloquently shared with the world, he explained to me directly when we were talking once. He said, I didn't understand why I got so many years, but my Colombian supplier only got 18 months. He said, this guy, I'm doing a whole lot of business out in LA, but this Colombian guy that I work for is doing 10 times more, but you gave him 18 months. Well, that's because there was never really an effort to stop the flow of the dope, right? We know this, right? We know what this did. And the thing is that this had a massive impact on the community that lasts to this day. It probably cost you at least about $3 or $4 trillion in black wealth. If you look at how many millions millions of families were destroyed, how many children were traumatized, how much death and violence has occurred, how many incarcerations took place, how much addiction has occurred. You're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar wealth loss. Imagine every dope fiend as a college graduate. Imagine a world where every parent that abandoned their child to get access to the drugs was actually home raising those kids. Imagine every traumatized child growing up to become a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, right? Think about what the community would look like. And the show Snowfall does a very good job of illustrating this point. If you watch Snowfall, they showed a scene where they showed what the black community would have looked like if drugs had never hit South Central LA. Right. So here's the point. Here's where I'm getting at with this. Right. So when Dee-1 challenges Rick Ross and says, "Come on, brother, I'm gonna do my New Orleans act." He got a good New Orleans accent. "Come on, brother. How you he got that new. I can't talk like I'm from New Orleans. I'm not making fun of my friend, but come on, brother. Why can't we do better?" Right. That's what he's saying. He's saying, do you understand what this imagery and what this messaging and what drugs have done to your people? The same people you're giving turkeys to are suffering because the culture that you are promoting is doing a lot of damage that a free turkey can't fix. Right? A free bicycle to a kid in the hood whose mom was hooked on crack and his daddy got 100 years in prison, that's not gonna make things better, right? If I had a choice between having parents that didn't go to prison and get hooked on dope or getting like a free tricycle in exchange for that, I'd probably rather have my parents than a free tricycle or a free turkey or whatever Rick Ross likes to give away, right? And I can say this as a child whose father was on drugs. I had no father. My biological father was not in my life. Well, where was he? Well, he was in jail and he was on dope. That's where the original Boyce, his name was Boyce. He died, and I never knew him because he was on that shit, right? So the reality is that this has affected so many of our families. In fact, if I was to ask you right now, give me a yes in the chat if you or someone you love has been harmed by drugs. If they've been addicted to drugs, give me a yes in the chat. If you yourself have experienced the problems with drugs, put a yes in the chat. If you know somebody in your family who's been locked up for selling drugs. I had a cousin that got locked up for selling drugs about a year ago. He got a big 10-year sentence. They took him away from his family. How many of you have relatives who've been killed over situations that involve drugs? And my best friend Greg Wilkins, Louisville, Kentucky, got murdered a few blocks from Breonna Taylor's house. Nobody talked about it because they don't care when black men die, right? So put the yeses in the chat. I want you to do this as an exercise to help us to sit back and really meditate on and really take a bath in, like really soak in the reality of what this culture has done to you, what this culture has done to your family. Like, imagine how great your business would be doing if your drug addicted cousin was actually working with you every day and y'all were building empires together. But instead, you're trying to keep this little raggedy motherfucker out of jail, right? Seriously. Like, really, I mean, think about this. Or just or so and so who abandoned their child because she was off getting high every day, and now the baby's all over the place and doing terrible. Remember, a lot of these kids that are used to the culture, that feel that this is black culture now, even though it's really not. They think it's black culture. They grew up in the middle of this. They grew up in the middle of a nightmare. A lot of them grew up in the middle of nightmares. And I think that as a community, it is our responsibility to stop for a minute as men. Man, the word man is short for manifest. Manifest means to create something, to make something real that doesn't exist, right? So think about this. And this is where I get to the bearded baby phenomenon, because I don't know if we have men, at least the men that we're looking up to, who understand what manifest actually means. To display or show a quality or feeling by one's acts or appearance, to demonstrate. And I'm gonna go deeper and say manifest means that if I see a vision, I'm going to go create that vision. If I see my family at a certain place, I'm going to go make that happen. If I'm with the Dallas Cowboys and I manifest the Super Bowl, I'm going to do what's necessary to beat the other team and get the ball in the end zone. If my goal is to manifest money, I'm going to manifest money. Like that, to me, Ice-T had a lyric where he said something like if I want $1 million, my mind is so deep, I'll be busting a check for it next week. Right. So the question is, here's what I'm really getting at here. This is a question about manhood versus boyhood. I love D1 for many reasons, but one of the reasons I love D1 is because he's a man. He's a man. He gets out and he does grown man stuff. He does. He gets out and he says, I'm gonna be a one-man army. Here's a song called One Man Army. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna fight the world because I know that the world needs an adjustment. And I believe I can pull that off. And that's a hell of a thing to do. Most men, a lot of the bearded babies, they don't understand the word manifest. Maybe they never had a man really explain that to them. So they will just simply go along and do what they think is cool. Right? They'll just follow the crowd or whatever's going to get me the most likes on Twitter, or I want to make sure I look cool. I want to make sure I present an image, even if it's not my own. Right? So I'm not really here to go this far as to say this because I don't want to be offensive to anybody, but I would really question. I don't even know what kind of conversation that can happen between one man on one side who is so clear about his God-given purpose and his vision for who he is. He literally has something called mission vision, right? He's so real and relevant to what he wants to be that he's not afraid to be different, versus another man who appears, at least from where I'm standing, to be so uncertain about his identity that he literally took another man's name as his own. Seriously, I'm not dissing, but I really don't understand that, right? I don't know what kind of beneficial conversation can even happen when you talk about Rick Ross. What's his real name anyway? I don't know. Let me Google that. I never knew. What's Rick Ross's real name? His real name is William Leonard Roberts II. William Leonard Roberts II. So I want y'all to understand what I'm saying. I'm having a high level kind of approach to this because I'm hoping y'all can go with me. I don't want to talk over anybody's head, but y'all understand where I'm going at with this. It's like okay, so D1 is, if anything, you can criticize him, you can talk crazy about what he did. One thing you can't say is that he's not authentic. You cannot say he's not courageously committed to being who he is, no matter what that means to the other people around him, right? He's clear about what he represents. He's whatever. And then you got on the other side a guy who won't even tell you what his real name is because he wants to be somebody else. He's understood for most of his career, Rick Ross or William Leonard Roberts, whatever the name is, his whole career he's played a character. He's played a character. And so I think at the very least, here's the thing. I'm not telling y'all to not support Rick Ross or listen to his music. Maybe you like it. It never really resonated with me, but maybe you like it. And that's okay. But I think at the very least, as a community, if we're trying to manifest the reality that we want to see, we've got to at least make sure that the men and women we listen to make a consistent effort to authentically represent who they are and what they truly believe. And also, it's important to understand that what they believe in is consistent with what you want to see in the community. So I'm going to just be honest with you. I'm tired of all the drug dealer glorification bullshit. Is anybody else with me? Is anybody else tired of this idea that somehow somebody taught you, and you didn't figure this out on your own. The white man did this when he put a whole bunch of money in this shit, that somebody made you believe that it's a good thing to celebrate the thing that is killing you the most. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Tupac, another guy who was very authentic about who he was. You can disagree or agree with him or not, but I love the fact that Tupac came out of jail and said, I need to share this with everybody. Prison is not cool. You do not want to go to prison. It's terrible, right? And I'm like, thank you for doing that. Because think about how many young boys there are in prison right now who are now older men. They're probably 30-something now because they went to prison 15 years ago, who are going to sleep, crying themselves to sleep every night, going through untold amounts of hell, who went to jail over something stupid because they did not understand what was in front of them. The worst thing in the world is, life is a place where when you're young, you make a lot of mistakes, And God protects babies and fools. And I ain't been a baby for a long time, but God protects me every day. So I must be a damn fool. And the thing about being a fool and getting that protection is that you make mistakes and you get a chance to learn. You get a chance to come back better. You get a chance to fix it. You get a chance to not mess it up the next time. But what if the time you mess up is when you're 17 years old and one of your buddies who's influenced by this culture convinces you to go rob a liquor store and pull a gun out on a white lady? And that judge gives you 80 years in prison with no parole. Well, now you're in the worst kind of hell imaginable because you've learned your lesson. It was a big lesson, but you never get a chance to come back better. You can't fix it now. Now you're labeled. Now you're locked away. You'll never see life as a free man again. And all this happened when you were 17, 18 years old. So here's what I'm getting at. I believe, and not everybody agrees, but I believe that it is up to us as the grown men and women in the community, those who accept the challenge of being responsible, intelligent human beings, to warn these kids the way Tupac did. Like, yo, do not do this. Do not make that mistake. Drugs will kill you. Drugs are bad. Drugs will get you in terrible situations. But at the same time, I got to go listen to some asshole who's on the radio rapping about how great it is to get high every day. And you living in a world where people are dropping like flies off of fentanyl alone. I ain't even talking about the violence. Just the fentanyl alone is killing people. Don't you think that we should, if we are to be taken seriously by the world, have men and women willing to lead, to speak up and say, no, this is not who we are? Don't you think that it is time that somebody step out here and say, let's not just follow down the Pied Piper's path just because it sounds good and they laid out the poison to a nice beat? I mean, don't you think? Give me. I hope you agree with me that maybe we have to start understanding what it means to manifest the reality that we want to have. And in order to manifest, you need to have the word man. You need men in your community. So when Dee-1 challenges Rick Ross and Dee-1 goes on Sway in the Morning like he did and just tears it up, he's done it before. He's been doing this. Dee-1 is a superstar. And he goes on Sway and he calls out these names and dealing with the backlash that clearly is going to come with that. Don't we owe it to this brother to say, I think you're right. I know the music is nice, but I really don't want our children dying in the street before they get a chance to even go to college or have a better life. I don't want young men getting locked up before they get a chance to be somebody's daddy. I don't want whatever the hell this is, whatever the hell the white man been feeding us for the last X number of years. I don't want it no more. I want something that's going to be beneficial to my children. I want a community that's safe. I want some intelligence in my community. What's wrong with that? And why is it that when people like myself say something like that, there are people out there, they're like, oh, you're being uppity. You're being uppity. There's nothing uppity about wanting black people to be safe. And there's nothing uppity about saying, look, bro, I know you gave away 18 turkeys last year for Thanksgiving, or maybe you gave away 18,000 turkeys. But instead of giving away, I'd rather you keep your turkeys, but also keep your dumb shit to yourself, right? Keep your turkeys and keep your lyrics. Keep your turkeys and keep all those messages too. Like, just keep the turkeys and just understand that there's no amount of turkeys you can give away, Rick Ross. And I hate saying this, and I would say it to his face. I have nothing against this guy. There's no number of turkeys you can give away that will make up for the vast amounts of damage that is being done to black children from these crazy, chaotic, toxic messages that exist within the music. I understand, though, you come out the trap, you come out the hood, whatever it is that people come out of that makes them think that this is something worth rapping about. I get it, but you're not sharing your experience from an authentic place. You're sharing your experience as a puppet. Now, why do I say that most rappers, many rappers, in my view, are puppets and frauds? Let me tell you why. They're puppets for the same reason this puppet's a puppet, right? So if this puppet talks, if this puppet says, I think all black women are stupid, are you going to get mad at the puppet? Are you going to go cuss out the puppet and say, how dare you mother ucker, you shouldn't be saying that stuff about women? Are you going to get mad at the puppet, or are you going to talk to the puppet master? Do you get what I'm saying? Are you going to come talk to me, or are you going to talk to him? Well, you're going to talk to me. Why are you going to talk to me and not talk to the puppet? Well, because the puppet, the puppet He doesn't know what he wants to say. He just says what I tell him to say. I could say, everybody eat your vegetables. And he's going to say that. Well, rappers are the same way, right? So sometimes when we talk about rappers on this channel, people think I'm talking about the artists. They say, Dr. Boyce, I think you don't like hip hop artists. I say, I'm not talking to the artists. I don't talk to puppets. I know the artists. I understand money. I have a PhD in money. And I understand that the actions of the artists are controlled by whoever's writing the goddamn check. I want to see who's right. I want to talk to your daddy. I want to talk to the one who told you that it was personally profitable for you to go and share a message that you and I both know is not requested by the Black community. You and I know that there's nothing good about the mass promotion of drug addiction amongst young children. You and I know what lies at the end of the road when you convince that little boy to run around toting a gun and shooting up at anybody that he gets mad at. Right? You and I know this, right? So I'm not talking to the rappers. So if somebody says, well, Dr. Boyce don't like Rick Ross, I ain't talking to Rick Ross. I want to talk to his daddy. I want to talk to the puppet master. So ultimately, in many cases, with hip hop, that's what you must understand. This is not and I would say even with D, I think that D, and this is what I said to him directly, and I would say it again. I would say it to anybody. There's nothing I would ever say on this channel about someone that I would not say to them. I want to make that clear. But I would say that maybe it's deeper than Rick Ross. Maybe it's not about Rick or Meek or whoever. It's about who's making money, who's paying them money to behave this way. Who pays you money as a 40-year-old man, 47-year-old man to act like or to respond to things as if you are a teenager? You know, I think that there's probably some more intelligence in there. I'm sure that you might sit around. I've seen this because I've been around. I've been on the Breakfast Club 4 times and all that, and I have literally sat there and been astonished by how intelligent some artists can be when the cameras ain't rolling. And so to some extent, everybody's being victimized by this culture because this culture is being created by somebody outside of the box. It's like we're all inside this box. Well, we've been trained like Michael Vick's dogs to fight each other and kill each other over crumbs, over scarce resources. But there's somebody outside the box who's controlling the temperature in that box. They are deciding how much money is going to be put in the box. And they say, oh, we want them to fight a little more, so we're going to pull some money out. Or we want this person to have more power, so we're going to give them more money and take money from this other group. They're controlling the temperature. Like, okay, let's turn the air down real cold so they'll be freezing. That's going to make them fight more, right? So they're controlling you. Right. And this is what white supremacy does. This is the world that we're dealing with. And so when I see this whole thing between Dee-1 and Rick Ross, I'm really seeing the bigger picture. I'm not just looking at who wins inside the arena. I'm looking at who built the arena. And because y'all know as well as I do that this was not the original intention of hip hop. The whole existence of the Rick Ross persona, which by the way, he did take from the real Freeway Ricky Ross. Go look it up. I'm not making this up. This is true. Okay. All of that, none of that would exist if your mindset had not been bastardized by the CIA putting crack cocaine into the Black community and then the subsequent war on drugs, which made prison into this wonderful thing. And at the same time they built all them prisons, that was the same time hip hop started promoting prison as a wonderful vacation spot for your young Black son. They had your son thinking that he ain't keeping it real if he don't go to prison. They had your son thinking that prison was a good place, no differently from the way Bill Cosby had people wanting to go to HBCUs when he put A Different World on TV. So all this is the reality that's been created over the last 30 or 40 years. So now the question is, what you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And that's where you separate the men from the boys. You have those who say, well, that's just what it is. That's where I'm going to be. That's where my mind is going to be. I'm not going to elevate beyond this because it's too hard. And then you have those, like, say, the D1s who say, no, I'm not going to respond to the way the world is. I'm going to talk about what the world should be. And that is why I respect men like that, because they have the courage and the really sheer insanity to believe that they can actually possibly change the world. A lot of you are in here because you think the same way too. And I want to encourage you. Keep changing the world. Break those generational curses in your family. Walk away from the ignorance. Think about the life that you're supposed to live, not just the life that was given to you. Don't go rapping about the trap or how great it is to be in the trap. Rap about getting out of the goddamn trap. How about that? How about that? How about we make some anti-trap music, like, or get out the trap music? Like, we spend so many years rapping about the trap, like that's a good place to be. Ain't nothing good about being in the trap. Ain't nobody in history that I ever know of who's ever been trapped sang about it and rapped about it like it was a wonderful thing. So why in the world do we glorify that? Why in the world do we act like that's a good thing? Why in the world is it not appropriate to have a summit of the biggest rappers and executives in the music industry to sit down, not the executives, not the people that are supporting the nonsense, but the people that want something different, sitting down and having a damn summit, a big ass summit I'm talking about with the people that have been about it since the beginning, from the KRS ones to the Chuck D's, to everybody else, and sit down and say, how do we fix this? And here's the thing: I think Rick Ross could even attend such a summit. Let me say something good about Rick Ross so it does not sound like I am criticizing him, because that is not what I'm trying to do. Years ago in 2013, when Russell Simmons and I challenged the Obama administration to change their incarceration policies, the plan was real simple. The play was real easy. He asked me to write a letter to the president asking him to change his policy. The first version I wrote, Russell said, "You're being a little bit too rough on him. Can you lighten it up a little bit?" I said, "Sure." So I swallowed my pride, didn't write the letter I really wanted to write. I wrote one that was a little more politically correct, because y'all know me. That's why I don't have any friends, because I can't. Sometimes I have no filter. I have to say it like it is. But we wrote this letter, and then Russell went and got a lot of celebrities to sign this letter. I got a lot of scholars to sign this letter, and one of the signatures on that letter is somewhere out here on the internet. I don't know where it is, but it worked, by the way. One of those names on that list I remember specifically was Rick Ross. I also saw Lil Wayne's name on that list, and I understand that, because here's the thing: we could talk all day about the things that divide us. Dee-1 and Rick Ross could argue all day over who gave out the most turkeys. They could argue all day about whether or not it was appropriate for Dee-1 to use Rick Ross's name in the video. You could argue all day about whether or not Rick Ross's response was appropriate. You could talk about that all day. But what I would love for us to do is for us to go to the next level. I would like for us to play chess and not checkers. And the next level of the conversation is to say, how about instead of us sitting around talking about the areas where we are divided, why don't we talk about all the areas where we have something in common? Why don't we talk about all of our similarities? Dee-1 can say, when my best friend got murdered, this is how I felt, and I don't want that to happen to anybody. Rick Ross can say, I went through some tragedies in my own family. I don't want to see that happen in my hood. He's a boss. He calls himself a boss. Well, I would encourage you to understand and think carefully about what that word boss means. Boss to me means that you are a person who can manifest a reality. So in addition to giving away the turkeys, God bless you and the turkeys, but I don't give a shit about a goddamn turkey, to be honest with you, because those people eating those turkeys need to also have a better life. If you care about somebody, you give them a turkey. But if you really care about them, you'll teach them how to get their own turkeys. And you'll also teach them how to have a table where they can serve the turkeys on, and have a family that they can sit around the table with and eat turkeys with, and have a safe environment within which they can sit with their families and eat turkeys together. So this quest to improve our community as men, involving health, wealth, and relationships, must be a complete holistic process that goes deeper than the base level sick hypocrisies that we have allowed ourselves to live in because nobody pushed us to really grow up. You understand? A child can live in the middle of his hypocrisy and not be challenged. A child can say Black Lives Matter in one sentence and die nigga die in the other one, and nobody's going to say anything. And that's what our rappers do. Our rappers, in many cases, they don't live like men. They're allowed to live like children, because it don't make a lick of damn sense for you to be at a Black Lives Matter rally 1 minute and then rapping about murdering black people the next. That makes no sense. And I don't know why in the world there are not other people who agree with this. This is what Dee-1 might refer to as cognitive dissonance. No, that's not a fancy white people word that's over your head. Let me explain. Cognitive dissonance is when you say one thing and you do another. I'm asking for some consistency. And a man is able to accept when people call him on his contradiction and say, 1 minute you did say Black Lives Matter, little baby, but then the next minute You talked about pulling up on a brother at a stoplight and shooting him in the head. That's a little inconsistent. How do we fix that? But we don't do that. You know why we don't do that? Well, this is where the finance professor steps in. Any finance professors, anybody with a PhD in finance? I got one. I want to answer that. I'll answer that. Where does the contradiction come from? It comes from the fact that white people are paying you millions of dollars to act like dumbasses. It's because there's a history in this country that goes back hundreds of years of black people performing minstrel shows and making big money with minstrel shows. This ain't nothing but, and so that's the thing. Hip hop, as KRS-One could probably explain, he's a brilliant guy. I'd love to talk. I've never met him, but I'd love to talk to him. He can explain. Hip hop can either be this brilliant, extraordinary art form that can elevate your consciousness to extraordinary levels, or it can just be the same clownish, buffoonish nonsense that you saw in 1902. Which one is it? Which one is it? What's it gonna be? Make a decision, man. So with Rick Ross, I'm not here to criticize him. I'm not trying to do that. I probably have offended somebody in this conversation because I always do, but just know that's not my intention. And there's nothing I would say about him that I would not say to him. I would like to see that summit. I would like to see the artists get together and say, okay, how are we going to manifest the reality that we want in our community? You know, and some of the artists did that back in the day. Remember, self-destruction, you're headed for self-destruction. And then the West Coast, they did, we all in the same gang and all that. I love that. Right. Well, I think that is still relevant to this day. We can do this, people. We have the ability to pull this off. All we got to do is put our egos to the side and focus on something bigger than how many records we might sell on our next album, or how much flexing we can do on Instagram. Get on Instagram and flex about how you have really truly elevated the condition of your community in a significant way. Do that type of flex, not the childish flex. Especially not when you're in your 40s. There's no excuse once you're really the age of 35, you know what's going on. You see what's happening. You can fix that. So that's my 2 cents. I'm done. And once again, just to finish off with the Russell Simmons story, Rick Ross signed that letter. He signed that letter that I wrote to the president, and it worked. Actually, when Justin Bieber tweeted the letter out on Twitter, it became the number 3 highest trending hashtag on earth. It was in the war on drugs, and that's when the Obama administration felt enough pressure that they actually changed their incarceration policy for the first time in 20 or 30 years or something like that. So mission was accomplished there. But that's just the beginning of what I think we can do if we really elevate our thinking. And it's a lot bigger than just giving away turkeys at Christmas. We got a whole lot of cleaning up to do in our community, and it's far deeper than a little bit of charity. So that's my 2 cents, guys. I hope this conversation was helpful. Again, anybody who hears this who doesn't understand where I'm coming from, they can call me, and I would talk to Rick. I talk to D. D's my friend, but I don't know Rick, but I'd be happy to talk to him too. Just anybody I can help with this, because I really want to see us do the right thing, even if that makes me look bad. I don't care about how I look. I just want to see us winning, man. I don't like us in the loser position. That's not where we belong at all. All right. So anyway, guys, I'm gonna go. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins. I have a podcast on Spotify. It's called the Dr. Boyce Breakdown. I also created a second podcast called How to Make Money Without Working on Spotify. So if you go search for that, you can find it there. Also Thursday, don't forget Thursday in the Black Business School, we're doing a stock options income training program. So if you are interested, it's a 1-day event called Prime 101. If you're interested in taking a look, just go to drboyceprime101.com. That's drboyceprime101.com, and you can join us. The discount will last until midnight tonight, actually. So feel free to check that out. And last but not least, if you want to see anything else we have going on, or check out my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, just go to boycewatkins.com. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate your time. And once again, when I tell you I'm really sorry if I offended anybody, I really am sorry. I'm not sorry for what I said, but sometimes it just comes out, and it can hurt people's feelings or whatever, and that's not my goal. My goal is just to tell the truth, man, because I don't know about y'all, but I'm just tired of the nonsense, and whatever we can do to fix that before we're done, I think we should. I think that we owe that to our kids, because I don't want them to have to go through what we went through. Give me a yes if you agree. All right, so hit the thumbs up button, and make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell. I'll see you guys soon. Take care now. Peace.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to co-sign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boy's TV. Here we are.